According to the Office of National Statistics, unemployment numbers have dropped by over 180,000. No signs of mass job cuts as the furlough scheme draws to an end.
It's not just people in jobs who can breathe a sigh of relief, though. The number of job vacancies has soared to a record high, with nearly 1 million available.
Well, we're joined now by economy expert Andrew Sachs. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Head of Research and Analysis for ETX Capital, to talk us through this. Are you surprised? Because over the last few months, there's been this sort of doom and gloom on the horizon, particularly at the furlough scheme wrapping up, that there were going to be hundreds of thousands of us without a job.
I think that's right. I think it's really a question of differentiating between what is said on the media and what the government says and what the actual reality is, because the type of job that's available is changing these days. That's one of the most important things to bear in mind. And for example, those who work for smaller businesses, and the smaller businesses are the ones that have been largely greater affected by these lockdowns and government policy, would be looking to join different sectors that they might not have considered before. Maybe they lost their business, or they had worked for a smaller company that had managed to find itself out of business or having to reduce its number of staff. So those particular employees might go towards working in the public sector, which is a complete shift of not only skill set but ideology. The public sector has been increasing in size, and even if it hasn't been a direct public sector position, it's been companies are contracted to public sector. So that is a sort of move towards a socialist system to some extent. And then you have blue chip firms, some of the FTSE 100 blue chip firms that have excelled. I mean, the FTSE for quite some time has been really high. Today it's over 7,150 points, and that's been a relatively non-volatile, consistent dynamic. So companies like big banks, big consultancies with government contracts and so forth are prospering and bringing up the value of the FTSE 100. It's worth bearing in mind that about 68% of large companies right now are looking at cutting the salaries of those who really want to stay working from home and refusing to come back to the office. So that means that there may well be good employment figures and not so much unemployment, but there will be people accepting a lower salary to stay at home, or having to diversify into different fields of employment that they may not be used to, and so forth. So you may see a quite healthy figures when it's looked at as a wider perspective, but actually it could be that there are lower salaries being paid to people, or that there are different shorter hours.
What do you make of that? Do you think it's fair for an employer to say, well, if you're going to work from home, we'll pay you less?
I certainly do, yes, I think so. I think it's a question of, it depends on the industry, of course, but I think if previously companies stipulated on the employment contracts that place of work was their office, and now there is no mandate to work from home, then I think employers should be well within their rights to say you should be in the place of employment, and if an employee refuses to do so, then they have to be considered. Maybe it's a different way of approaching that particular job, or that particular position needs to be looked at. And of course, what
about the other argument, Andrew, where some people are saying, well, if you want me to come to the office, pay me for my commute?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Quite a few people have been paid for their commutes over the years. And actually, the 68% of companies that have this morning released data, according to a survey by a human resources software provider, that they would look to reduce the remuneration packages of people who are not prepared to commute to the office. Some of that is actually their travel allowance or their London waiting allowance or something like that. It's not necessarily their salary,
because
but it's basically saying if you don't really want to come here, then we don't need to pay you your travel.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for talking to us, Andrew Sachs, economy expert. Really appreciate your time.